Hospital in Canberra. She's currently in the process of becoming a nurse practitioner, so that gives her powers to prescribe medicine. So she might be a good friend to have later. She got her Masters in Public Health from James Cook University and is of Tongan descent. So let's welcome Catherine to the stage.
It is a real pleasure to be here, mostly because I'm supposed to be at work right now. No, actually, I feel very fortunate to be given this opportunity to come and take a part and also to share in this Talanoa. Before I actually say any more, I'd just like to take this opportunity to make the necessary acknowledgements. The Ngunnawal people, to the Ngunnawal people, the traditional landowners, Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Tonga, leaders, ladies and gentlemen. A separate mention to the organisers for inviting me here today. I'm honoured. Now, I'm well aware, as has been pointed out, that I'm one of the last speakers on the final day of this conference. And my husband did tell me, you better make it very good or very short. So let's see how it goes. This might be very short. I have been asked to reflect on my recent experiences working in Tonga. So just to give you a bit of background, I am Tongan, as has been pointed out. I came to Australia with my parents when I was 2. I spent my childhood in the Northern Territory, growing up with Nez, and my teenage years in Sydney. I have lived in Canberra for the last 15 years, and I have worked as a specialist emergency nurse in the Calvary Hospital and practiced as an advanced practice nurse for the last 11 years. Now, early this year I was invited to go to Tonga with a team of emergency specialists to do what is called a scoping visit to the Viola Hospital Emergency Department. This was the first opportunity that I have had to work on such a program, so I feel so lucky and extremely privileged to take part. Looking around the room today, I am pretty certain that most of you would know where Tonga is, but for the 1 or 2 of you who might not, the Kingdom of Tonga is a collection of islands spread over roughly 800 square kilometres of Pacific Ocean, and lies between Samoa and New Zealand. It has a population of approximately 104,000 people. 70% live on the main island of Tongatapu, and the rest is spread throughout the other island groups of Vava'o, Hawaii and the Niuas. Now, Tonga's Ministry of Health has spent a good part of 10 years improving its health services. This has culminated in the renovation and rebuilding of the Viola Hospital, its development, the development of its specialties and training of its staff. The hospital was kindly funded and built by the Japanese. It was completed in 3 stages, of which the final stage was completed in April this year and officially opened by King Dubois VI on the 4th of May. This last stage included a purpose-built emergency department, of which the ministry has been keen to develop as a specific service, as well as develop emergency medicine as a specialty in the kingdom. Hence why we became involved and were invited to assess and advise. In Tonga and most island communities, the outpatients department is the point of call for the majority of consultations and referrals in the kingdom. The reason being that it is free. And secondly, because there is a lack of available private clinics, or what we know as GP services. The numbers seen through the outpatient department of Viola Hospital range from around 150 to 200 patients per day. Emergency, which is what we were more interested in, was considered separately to outpatients and consisted of a 2-bedroom with resuscitation equipment. The number seen through here was approximated at 1,000 per year. The number seemed too low to almost justify review. However, what we found was both outpatients and emergency combined was what we here in the developed world defined under the one banner of emergency. In the new Viola department, it is now considered as just emergency, and the service has been streamlined to reflect this. I have now been to Tonga with this team twice this year. First on our scoping visit, and second for the opening and to assist with the move to the new building. We are scheduled to go again at the end of this month to do more training with the staff. This has been a real dream for me. I've always wanted to do this type of work, especially in Tonga. Although I grew up here, and my parents brought me here when I was two, I value my Tongan heritage. And I've always wanted to help where I could. When I went to Tonga, I found it both exciting and nerve-wracking going home. Firstly, because I'm not so confident with the language. Although I understand it really well, I speak it. Sorry. I speak it with an accent, which I often feel quite embarrassed about. I was also worried about the reception by the nurses and how they would feel towards me, some wannabe expert, trying to teach them, I don't know, whatever. But those feelings soon dissipated as I was made to feel very welcome. And accepted as part of the team from the moment we arrived. Of course, it helped that I was Tongan, and I tried my best not to be pushy or seem like I know it all. In the Tongan culture, that's not a characteristic. These are not characteristics of a smile upon. Oh, thank you. So the contrasts between Calvary or any other Australian hospital and Viola are many, and practices are vastly different, all of which should not have been a surprise for me, but were eye-opening nevertheless. A big part of my input was triage training, and Tonga's triage system is loosely based on the Australasian triage score. So for those of you who don't know the triaging system, I'll give you a quick little rundown so that when you go to emergency departments here, you'll know exactly what your number means. So the triage score is basically how long a patient can wait until they need to be seen by a doctor. So obviously this is based upon the triage nurse's initial assessment. For this Australasian triaging system, a patient can be given between a 1 to 5. A category 1 means they need to be seen immediately. A category 2 needs to be seen within 10 minutes. A category 3 within 30 minutes. A cat 4 within 60 minutes. Or a cat 5 within 2 hours. So basically, if you look over and you see a cat 5 against your name, you might as well go home and see your GP. What we found in Viola was that everyone basically got a category 5. Unless the nurse recognised the patient was ill, then they would be given a higher category. The key word here being recognised. The common practice for nursing is that the nurses rotate throughout the wards on a regular basis. The idea behind this is that they encourage highly skilled generalist nurses. Interestingly enough, I got a chance to speak to the matron, and we were talking about specialty nursing. And she said, we don't encourage that here. We like our nurses to know how to do everything. The only specialty that they see any value of is midwifery, because they send their staff to all the islands, so they need to be able to deliver babies and pretty much do everything. And so what we found was that there wasn't really a core ED staff staying in ED. That has now changed, and we have 5 ED staff that stay in ED. The rest rotate, which means you have to keep retraining them. And basically what training is at the moment is that you see one, do one, teach one. So if you see one that isn't correct, that's how it's going to be throughout. So I found during my mentoring sessions that if the nurses were unsure what to allocate a patient, they would wait until they went around and had their observations, which was a different process. So they'd be triaged in one area, then they'd go around and have observations done. And then based on those observations, then they'd make their decision. But this defeats the purpose of higher categories, because from your category 3s upwards, you've already, sometimes they don't get the observations done until about an hour after. So a category 3, they need to be seen within 30 minutes. So it defeats that purpose of them waiting to find out what they're going to give this patient. So what we needed to do was do a lot of retraining, and we have tried to recommend that they have more ED staff that stay there. But that's a battle that has yet to be won. Many patients that present are what you would classify as GP patients here in Australia. But amongst these patients are also quite sick people who are not identified as being sick. Many children who represent for the 3rd or 4th time to the ED were often severely ill by this stage because they had not been recognised to be ill in the 1st or 2nd presentation. Another contributor to delay was a ticketing system that was set up to deal with a large influx of patients. So basically a patient would come in, get a number, sit down, and then wait to be called up, and that could be maybe hours later. Then once they were seen by the triage nurse, then they were decided exactly what category they got, and then they were put back out in the waiting room to wait. This just meant further delays in identifying sick patients. When we suggested that they get rid of the ticketing system, they were quite reluctant because in the morning there would be 50 people needing to be triaged when the doors opened. We couldn't quite understand why this was the case, but soon realised that there is a prayer session between 8 and 8:30, and from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock the night nurse stops triaging. So from 7 to 8:30 there's no triage going on. So by the time they open their doors, there's 50 people waiting there to be triaged, and that's why they developed the ticketing system. There's also a closing time at 12:30 to 1:30 for lunch, and basically the doctors use this time to catch up on their consultations. However, when they open their doors again at 1:30, there'd be another 50 people waiting to be triaged, and so they'd be continuously chasing their tails. So this is being renegotiated, but the prayer time slot is to stay for the time being, and culturally that is acceptable. There is no doubt that the staff are under extreme pressure. They're often abused for not being friendly or showing favouritism, but that's often the nature of emergency anyway. We get abused all the time. Just to demonstrate how hard they work, a typical shift might be a medical officer and a health officer. Now, a health officer isn't actually a doctor, but they have been trained to do doctor-like things, so they can see specific patients, but they're supposed to work with a doctor. Sometimes it might just be 2 health officers working for the shift. Sometimes sometimes they may not have anyone at all, it would just be the nurses there. So they might have the medical officer and a health officer, and then they'll have 4 nursing staff, and this is for the morning and the evening shift. It drops to 1 medical officer at night and 2 nursing staff. Over a 24-hour period, they could probably see up to about 200 and 300 patients depending on peak times. For these numbers, there need to be at least double the staff, and we probably see half those numbers in Calvary, but we have much more staff. We've got double the staff. as you would expect, resources are poor. Things that we take for granted are a luxury there. Soap and water. Finding a sink, would be good. But soap and paper towels are a luxury there. Gloves are locked away and are only handed out by the charge nurse. I found this practice quite funny, but it's probably necessary when supplies are the way they are. I was quite surprised also to find that everything I knew about infection control went straight out the window. Hand washing is attended if they have soap, but there is definitely hand washing. But they don't have paper towels, they have cloth towels, and this is used by 6 to 7 people continuously until they replace it. They do the very best with what they have, and it gave me a huge insight into how much we waste here. Anything that could be washed and reused was. Everything was rationed carefully, especially by the charge nurse. And it's funny to see how the hierarchy works in this area, because the charge nurse is definitely in charge. She tells you exactly how it's going to happen. So with the program that I'm working on, funding hasn't been approved until 2014. So we have a lot of work to do. Training and providing support for staff is our main focus at the moment. We hope with the continued support, changes to processes and practices can be made, and a move towards a fully functioning ED as a specialty will be realised. They will get there, baby steps, I've been told. We have only just begun, but the staff are definitely willing and able, which is half the task. So these are obviously just snippets of my experience, and it's only a small part of a bigger picture. So I hope it gives you some idea of the work that is being done in Tonga. So thank you.
For a very moving and inspiring speech, and I hope it motivates everyone else here who has a PhD, nurse, or even a bachelor's degree to start a new journey where you give back to your community, as Catherine has done so marvellous. Thank you. We'll take questions together with Julia's presentation at the end, if that's okay with everyone. And she's about to become a tattoo artist, so if anyone wants to donate their body to her art, you can see her later. So
I'll fix it when I get better.
So welcome to Julia, everyone.
Hi.
How many speakers? Are you working? It's working.
Well, maybe I'll just introduce myself while we're waiting for, what are those things called? Speakers. And I'll just do that by playing some slides. So, my name is, outside of Papua New Guinea, which is where I'm from, is Julia Gray, with an A. Just to get that right. But my village name, my name in Papua New Guinea is Mange'o. Mange'o. Yeah, you know the same alphabet as Samoa. And these are just photos to show pretty much my foxy mum. And this is my grandmother, Ubertoli, my aunties, and me with awesome hair. Kind of reddish because my father's a full-blown Scottish, Jewish, English, mongrel-breed Australian, I like to call him. And he is. But he was brought up in Papua New Guinea, speaks the languages. I've heard a lot about languages in this Talanoa, and I'm not a master of any language other than English and body language, which is what you use when you can't speak. So you can't put anything past people that understand body language, just saying. So that's me. This is my grandmother with her tattoos. It's not very clear, but I grew up with her, and these tattoos on her chest, on her torso, and we didn't know at the time. I only found out through this journey that I've been on called Tep Top. Oh, sweet. The real meaning of my name. So I was really excited by that. But I'll play the footage for you, so because I'm not really best at explaining stuff without using lots of words. Where am I?
My grandmother has tattoos. She had tattoos all over her. It must have been really painful because that's like the sensitive area, you know? Oh my gosh, on the body. I never really took a close look at them.
Yeah.
Tried to work out what the designs were or anything. I have no idea. My mom would have known.
It's kind of the tattoo system is fading.
You know, when kids just do different designs or just pictures or just marks, then, you know, to me, it just doesn't mean anything.
They should try and get more traditional, but you know, they think more. Some of them, they can even have man-made. It's not good. I think that's those kind of tattoos, I don't like them. We can bring it back if we would like to.
So it's a promo for Tep Talk. Tep Talk started, it started probably when I first got my first tattoo. But it started in fullness this year. I've just been to Tahiti. I'm a dancer, that's what I do. I run a dance company called Cinematic Productions. And our motto is from old to new old. So we base everything that we do, we learn the traditional form as well as we can outside of its context, and then we bring it into relevance in Australia. So I'm a dancer, I'm in Tahiti, I decided to get a tattoo. I asked my auntie, what should I tattoo? Because it's a woman's practice in PNG, and she says, Aipa, Viri, I'm not sure how you said it in Samoan, but it's the centipede. Why centipede? Because centipedes are for warriors. Why am I a warrior? Not the type that worries, but you know, a warrior. It's because for Papuan women, Central Province women, it's the women that travel to the men's clans. It's the women that have power and strength. And yes, Papua New Guinean women may look like we're submissive and meek, but we hold the power. We just have men as the face. This is for our area anyway. There's 800 living languages in PNG, 21 provinces, la 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 la. If you know anything about Papua New Guinea, you know that it's diverse and we don't always get along. But women are powerful, women are strong, women have Aipa tattoos, centipede tattoos. And why am I talking about tattoos and health and well-being? Because the person that I am, my father is Australian, my mother is Papua New Guinean, and basically one half of me decided to visit the other half a long time ago, and in the goodness of their hearts brought the word of God, but also decided that the practices that we were doing for our women were unhygienic, weren't clean. They didn't understand. Their mistake was that they thought there was only one way. There are many ways. We know this now. But because of that, we lost a lot. And so why do we do Tep Talk? Because we want to, what's the word? It's a renaissance. We want to bring back our mana, for want of a Papua New Guinea word. I don't have one. But that's kind of why we're doing it. But it started at the NRL Pacifica camp. And I was in a room filled with Polynesian men and one Melanesian, or maybe 2 or 3, I'm counting, including the Fijians. And I sat at the back of this room, and there were all these wonderful rugby league players. They were calling me auntie, reminding me of my age. And I realised that all of them had on their bodies stamped their identity. And they were proud. They all said, many of them said that they didn't understand everything about their cultural backgrounds, but what they did know was that they were proud and they wanted to put it on their bodies. They wanted it to be seen. So with that, in this room filled with these players with their tattoos, that stayed with me. Tahiti, I get a centipede tattoo. I'm talking to Nigel Vangana, who's had a massive part in this project, about his tattoos because I'm incredibly nosy. And then he says to me, you should do a project with the NRL, la la la. And I'm going, why would I want to do that? I have no passion or drive to interview people about their tattoos. What's the point? How does that relate to my tattooing? How does that relate to the fact that I'm a woman and that's our practice? What has that got to do, Melanesia, Polynesia? I don't understand. I couldn't make the connection, but I also couldn't let go of the opportunity because, if anything, I'm half Australian and capitalism, let's just say, they're always looking for money, so we never have any money, but it was an opportunity, so I put it on the back burner and I thought about it. And then I decided to go home to see my family, and home being Papua New Guinea. And I saw these young men covered in tattoos, and that was completely new to me. And they were, they're young, they're 20, they're covered, and the tattoos are, and because I'm so biased, awful, absolutely awful. It's barbed wire, it's roses, it's I don't know, stuff that has nothing to do with our cultural backgrounds at all. So I'm asked someone randomly, and you don't do that in Papua New Guinea because there's so many strict rules about women talking to men, la 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 la, which I found was a lot like being in Tonga. But I went up to this young man and I said, what's with the tattoo? Why are you tattooed? And he said, because, I want to be cool. And I said, yeah, but why? And then his answer changed the direction of everything that I was to do for the rest of this year. He said to me 2 words, Benji Marshall. And I've just gone, Benji Marshall? And he said, yeah, first I started with his hair, and then I went and I copied his tattoos. Copied his tattoos. And then I saw red. Why would you want to copy his tattoos? We're Papua New Guinea, and what's wrong with you? And then I realised I wasn't related, had no, I really shouldn't be berating this young man who's just happy to be a Pacific citizen. So anyway, my auntie called me over, I got in trouble, blah, blah, blah. And then I made the connection. I made the connection that we needed to talk to these guys, or let them know at least that what these NRL players are doing is that their tattoos have cultural significance. It's not just about being pretty. I mean, it is pretty. That's why everybody tattoos or wears clothes or be fashionable. But the reason behind it is completely cemented in a cultural identity. And so for people to mimic others in the Pacific, fantastic, but look to your own first. Our problem being women. Women tattoo, not men. So then we decided that we would make this film, TikTok. And it's changed my life. So all of a sudden I'm a filmmaker. It's just terrible really, but so I'll just run through I'll just let these play while I'm talking. But yeah, so anyway, that's the project. The project's taken me from me and my team, which is Nata, Ranu and Paia, and it's taken us from the Sunshine Coast to the Gold Coast to parts of Sydney, Canberra, Auckland, Samoa, Papua New Guinea, Tahiti, and back to Darwin. So lots of places in about 3 months. But yeah, these are some of the images of the journey that we've been on, and yeah, it's been pretty full on. And so part of what we do is we take what's traditional and we try to make it relevant. And so we talked to a lot of people, to a lot of the old women in the villages, asking how they felt about men being tattooed with women's designs. And I'll tell you what, they're very resistant. But as soon as we put it into the why we do it is different to how we used to do it, and what the reasons before are different to the reasons now. They pretty much changed their tune, and it just took a little bit of talk, and yeah, saying, do you want to lose it or do you want to keep it? And they want to keep it. So yeah, so these designs are from Gaba Gaba, Motu. These ladies, they had Samoan missionaries in their village, and we thought we would be, well, I thought that what I wanted to do was to take, because they stopped the tattooing, so I thought it would only be right to take the girls back to Samoa and to be tattooed traditionally, our designs. And so we just did that about 3 weeks ago. And it was pretty momentous, actually. It was massive. By Suluape, Petero Suluape. Yeah. And he said to me, so this is the Titans, they were... Yeah, so this is David Mead. He's Papua New Guinean Australian. He's from our area. And we spoke to him about whether or not he would want to be tattooed with women's designs. And he basically said, if it's a link and it's respect to my grandmother, I would happily wear her designs. I asked the same question to the Penrith players about Samoan malu. I said, if there was no pea, would you wear a malu? And yeah, it was a very hard question for them to answer. But putting it into a context of if you had nothing else, they all came up with yes, because it's about identity and pride, and when you live in a Western context, it's really important. Really important. Tongan lady lives in Sydney. She is a contemporary dancer. Her work is very controversial. She's awesome. I love her to death. And she's really bossy. That's why I said that. So yeah. So this is what I'm working on. I'm not the best at talking forever, so if you've got any questions, just fire them at me. Yeah. So if you have a look at her, she's Māori, but she has Papuan designs on her face. So we're just making a play at our connections. Young man of 18 has a full pair. This guy is Chinese with the Tahitian tattoo. Yeah? Where is he? Oh my gosh. This is in Mecca, so she has their tattoos, the Mecca tattoos are pretty much gone, and so I should tell you about my name, really. My name, Mange'au, is a name of a village. If you go to the coast, they call it Marehau. If you go a little bit further down, they call it Delena. So I've always thought that my name meant, a village. It wasn't until I picked up an article written by Captain Francis Barton in 1918. He decided to go into our areas and record our tattoo designs. And I found my name. And my name is the frigate bird that goes across the torso of our traditional designs. And so that was, I rang up my mother and said, why didn't you tell me? But she didn't know, and nobody knew, because once the missionaries came in, they pretty much stopped it overnight. And so here in Hula, we brought a tattooist from Darwin, and we tattooed a generation of women. For the first time, they missed the mothers, so it's gone from grandmother to granddaughters. So it was 50 years since tattooing had actually happened in Hula. And we were really conscious about health and hygiene. And so that's why we brought her, and so we tattooed her cousin on with a generator with the machine, and pretty much explained the process about hygiene and what you use, and we left a lot of stuff behind for them. Yeah, to continue the practice. But what's really interesting about this place is the women that were tattooed before missionaries say that they were born in a time of darkness, and in the time of light, tattooing had to stop. And I couldn't understand what they meant about darkness and lightness, and then we realised they referred to, when the missionaries came, they brought light and the Word of God. And so it was a really interesting thing to be talking to old women that were born in the time of darkness. They were covered in tattoos and were not happy about their bodies, and in fact did not want to show them. So in a sense, doing this project here and showing them that their grandchildren want to be tattooed with what they have brought an immense pride. So that old woman had never shown her tattoos to her family before we'd come, and the shock when she walked out with her tattoo and her grass skirt, it was complete silence, and that's really hard to do in PNG, complete silence. And so we've asked them, and we've asked them, they basically asked, have you ever seen her like this? And they'd all never. And then the thing was, we want a tattoo, and so now we feel that we have to make sure the hygiene is happening. This lady's from Manus. They have facial tattoos, obviously Māori, from Talanoa. They're all dancers in my dance group based in Darwin. He's from Vanuatu, Kiribati, Solomons. Papua New Guinea, Australia, from Milne Bay. And so his tattoo designs come from the gourds that they make, their lime pots, the designs. And she's obviously Māori. So yeah. So it's been a bit of a journey, and I continue the journey tomorrow. I fly to Auckland and I start my tattoo apprenticeship with Inia from Moko Inc., who was taught by Paulo Suape. And that pretty much begins. And I was saying, it's all for our children. That's why we do this. So yeah, that's why we do this. That's kept up. 8-hour sitting. He sat for 8 hours to get that tattoo. And this is our journey in Talanoa. So my girls approached this ballet, and they were, what's the word? Well, let's just say they were so taken aback at the irony of the situation. Yeah, it was pretty, that's me by the way, it was pretty moving. So they pretty much got the girls' attention because they sat there and cried at him for about 20 minutes. But if you go to somewhere, you have to go to this place. Don't know why, but yeah. Forging our new tattoos. Yes. The real people. I've also been interviewing about getting the full traditional, the malu. So Filoi has a malu, and I asked her why, being that she lives in Auckland, why does she feel she needs it? And she basically said that she's a dancer, it's about identity, it's about pride. And so, there's so many reasons why we tattoo, and I suppose for us in PNG, for the women, we're pretty much trying to bring it back and encourage our young men. Encourage our young men to look at their own culture and have pride in their women and their culture. And that's it.
Thanks, Julia, for that really interesting and pretty presentation. So do we have any questions for our panellists? I'll just invite Catherine back up to the stage. Georgie?
Thank you so much, ladies. They were brilliant presentations. I think they definitely reflected different in the Western setting like Australia can continue to engage and learn in that. First question is in regards to the hospital work. Is there a need for other allied health professions to also be involved in the hospital setting in Tonga?
Well, don't know. Yes, there is a need for, you mean like pharmacy and other
social work,
physio,
physiotherapy,
yes, definitely there is. There's always a need. But with Tonga, the thing about Tonga is that they're mostly Tongans working within the system. So we don't, I know that in other countries like Fiji and Samoa, that they have other nationalities working within their system, whereas with Tonga, you've got Tongan doctors, Tongan nurses, Tongan physio, and then you've got the Tongan pharmacists as well. So, yeah, it's not that they don't encourage people to come over, but it generally has just turned out that way. And Tonga kind of pushes their people to go out and, sort of pursue those kind of specialties, or, to become doctors, nurses, or mostly doctors, because we need more doctors. But, it's mostly Tongans that are running the hospital and things like that.
So the professional identity of each of those particular people is quite different compared to here in Australia. So like a physio would be seen as something different, identity-wise there in Tonga as opposed to here in Australia. Do you know what I'm asking? So like the whole understanding of what a physio does, the method to practice, all that sort of stuff would vary quite differently in the islands to here. Or would be similar.
They're educated over here anyway.
Oh, right.
So their education is done over here, and then they come back home. So, but generally speaking, like some of them that leave the country to pursue education over here don't often come home.
Yes.
So then, whoever's there really want to be there. But yeah, no, they're educated overseas.
So yes, so the standard
Except for
of
the nurses.
So what I'm saying is professional practice. So professional practice is the same standard as it would be expected here in Australia, or completely?
Probably not.
Probably not. Just one thing that I learned from my PhD research is that I interviewed medical scholarship people who had come from Samoa to New Zealand, and their thing was that they'd had all these lecturers who talked about CT scans, all these fancy equipment, but in the back of their mind they're like, okay, we don't have CT scans.
That's right, yeah.
So it's about adjusting what they learn here to fit the context of back in Samoa. So I would imagine that would work the same way in Tonga, that they have to be quite innovative in using their Western knowledge to fit in the context of, I guess, what is
And they
third
are
world
relying a lot more on their
resources.
Yeah, they're relying a lot more on their like with the doctors, because they don't want those things.
Sorry.
Any other questions?
Question for the third question. What do you plan to achieve in Auckland?
I plan to achieve basically working, making the tools, learning how to make the tools, learning about the hygiene in using the traditional tools as opposed to guns, and then the actual the method, learning how to tap, and part of that too is learning about the designs.
When did you go to Samoa?
Well, maybe for my daughter. My daughter's half Samoan, and it'll be her choice. So the idea is that eventually I'll be able to tattoo the girls in our dance group, or the Papua New Guineans that we've all grown up with, their daughters. But for my daughter, because she's Samoan, Papua New Guinean, but I think she's Māori because that's where my husband's from. It'll be her choice. So she's already started designing what she thinks she wants to have tattooed on her body. So that's, so it's interesting. So if she wants a malu and I've learnt by then I will tattoo her. But for me, no malu. But maybe the frigate bird across my chest. Joke.
What if you change your mind after 5 years, you don't want these things?
I wish I could. I never do anything lightly. And for the past 20 years, I've been on the same path with Sinameka and the dancing. I don't change my mind once I start something.
For someone else?
Oh, for someone else? Well, that's the thing. You don't tattoo lightly. Funnily enough, it really has to be something that's that you've spoken to with the women in your family, or for men and women, for your whole family. It needs to be something that comes from everybody. It needs to be accepted by all of your family, because it's your body. It's your temple. I'm not very religious, but I do believe in that. It's a massive undertaking. So just going over somewhere and going, oh, I want to have a tattoo that you need to put some thought into it, and because it actually costs much more to laser it off and hurts way more than the actual process.
So Julia, in essence, sorry.
That's okay.
I just want off the back of that response. So in essence, what you're trying to do for people is to help them reconnect to their true cultural identity in representation to their tattooing.
Yeah, it's about taking our old tradition and bringing it back to life in a way that works for them. So that's their choice. Personally, I was happy to make the film, but as the process has gone on, everyone has kept pointing the finger at me, saying, "Well, you need to pick up the tools. That's how you bring it back." And so I'm picking up the tools.
Koila, sorry. Thank you for sharing this. Just something I wish to clarify. You talked about your journey being going from the old to the new old, and you talked about it being like a renaissance. In that journey, have your people given you the blessing to revive it, so that, because along the journey you were the filmmaker, now you're going to learn to be the tattooist?
Yeah.
Have you got blessings from your people?
Totally. They blessed me even though I didn't want to be, but yeah.
So that whole part of, I guess, the Pacific Islanders, as we are evolving, how our role changes from one to the other, ensuring that the spirit and the essence of what we're doing in the ritual part of it, so that it's not just a tattoo for decoration.
That's right.
But there's thought, and there's gift, and there's whole power given to that. So I just wanted clarification on that part of it.
Yeah, totally. What I learnt, where I'm from in PNG, we're known for our sorcery, and our particular strength is whaia, and whaia means that you will things to happen.
That's the danger of what you're doing.
Please let her finish. Let her finish her
Let
story.
the spirit come alive.
Yeah, that's totally. Whaia comes in with all things, positive and negative. And so basically, I went there, and it was quite blindly, but I believe everything happens for a reason. And so I found myself in my village eating my mother's share of crabs because she wasn't there. And in the hierarchy, she's firstborn. I'm her firstborn, so I have lots of say about who and what. So anyway, I've gone to the village, And I sat there with my cousins, and we've decided that we're just going to go to Bubulama and ask her, because she's the last practitioner. She's partially blind. She's partially blind, very passionate about her tattooing. And we found out that my grandmother was not actually tattooed on the coast like everyone else had thought, but was actually the last woman to be tattooed with Mekeo traditional designs in Mekeo. And I'd always known that her designs were different, but when you grow up with it, you don't really question it. But this became apparent. And then before I knew it, we were talking to people. We'd stirred up a lot, and normally when you do that in Mekeo, if you stir up a lot, it means you've got to balance it out somewhere else along the line, or else you'll get sick. So I've left. I've left Mekeo after 2 days, and I'm sick as a dog because I've stirred everything up, and what ended up happening was they were to the point of, well, I want this to happen. Bubulama got her niece. They came to my house in the garden and basically said, we're going to show you how to tattoo. This is how we do it. And then all of a sudden, it was my auntie, whose skin is completely unmarred. She said, okay, me first. And then it was my cousin saying, okay, me as well. And then my niece was saying, well, you got yours, I'm getting one too. And so it started off this thing, and then I started to freak because I was thinking, how are you going to tattoo, and is it healthy, and what are you using? And Bubulama said to me, she said, we have ways of dealing with this. And she's come up with, this is this and this, and, one needle for one person, we fire it, la, la, la. And I was still a bit nervous, but the tattooing it happened. And then they were saying, you need to keep this going. And so in that sense, I was reluctant because I'm not a tattooist. I'm like, oh my goodness. But anyway, sorry, breathe. So it is about that role change, and being supported by your family. And a note on that, it's very easy to be critical. It's very easy to be critical, but in saying that too, you always need to have an open mind. You always need to know that cause and effect change, and things happen for a reason. So yes, Wai'a has a good and a bad side, but so does Christianity. So does the missionaries. So does the faith, that the way that we used to live, and the way that we live today. So it's about active choice. And someone said that today. It's about the choices you make, about making your words into actions, and making that happen. So that's where I'm at. Sorry, you made me cry.
Well done, Julia and Catherine. A hand for their wonderful presentation.